on, let's get some of the lads together. Let's have a good idea. Okay, you're on. Come on, fellas. Get around the piano. Let's have a good go. Come on, then. You ready? Come on, you lot. Go on, then.
Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The imps are here to stay. Lincoln City are the team, the Reds is their name. Stinsel Bank is their home ground and football is their game. So come and cheer them on, you lads, support them all the way. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our...
Morning all, how we doing? It's quite chilly up here again this morning, although I seem to say that all the time at the moment because it's winter. So that's what happens in winter, it gets cold. So there we go. Kate Jackson, I swear that opening song gets longer every time. Not long enough for me to have a wee, unfortunately, which is what I was hoping to do. But in my haste to go live, never knowing how long a dog walk's going to go, I didn't think I had time to, in this weather, locate and action. Anyway, so morning, Bri. Hope you're well, pal. Morning, Sean. See you later. So we're talking live show today a little bit. I'm sure at some point we'll talk a little bit about Lincoln City because the dog looks like he's on one. He's off ahead of me. I don't know if you can see that down there, bum wiggling in the air, which is better than in my face, which is where I found it this morning on the pillow when I woke up, attached obviously to the dog. So tonight's the live show. So I just wanted to sort of give you a little bit of a rundown of what to expect. And if anybody who's watching in the Lincoln area still wants to come, we literally have, I think it's 8 seats available at the moment, but there'll always be a couple of people who don't turn up on the night. So, we're happy to slightly oversubscribe if we need to. So if there's anybody watching Lincoln area, it's Thursday night, you think, do you know what, I'd like to go down to the Legends Lounge, have a drink, have a bite to eat, listen to some Lincoln City people talk about football, and I can endure Ben and Gary's petty banter in between, then brilliant, crack on, come along. But drop me a message, and if you have a look on stacywest.net, there's a couple of articles on there about the live show, one from yesterday, and it's got a form on that you just have to fill in to get tickets. Anybody who has applied for tickets has got tickets at the moment, so we've not turned anybody away. This is a 200 capacity venue, so it's probably about 25% of the listeners that we get on a weekly basis, so that's pretty impressive to get so many people in one place. 200 people for the 200th episode would be superb. Morning, Gav. Good luck for later. Gav's coming, see you there. Kev Sewell is still a clown. The pair of them are always calling each other clowns. The circus act will be there as well. The chairs won't be pointing at them, but doubtless they'll be there to entertain you. So what can you expect this evening? Well, first of all, we have got a grand total of 6 guests, all of which I was preparing questions for yesterday. So first up, the first session, that's going to kick off about 7 o'clock, and we're going to be talking to Mark Kennedy and Danny Butterfield. So this is probably the headline act. Unlike a music gig, we're starting it the other way around. So we'll be starting with the main men, the main event. And it's going to be an opportunity to talk to Mark about his first 6 months in charge, what he's found difficult, what he's found good. He talks about things that he mistakes that he's made or things that have surprised him. So we want to get down into that and find out what that is. We're going to talk to him a little bit about team selection and about tactics. We really want to kind of delve into that and talk about the 3 at the back and the 2 at the back and what strengths we've got, what weaknesses we've got. We've got a couple of curveball questions in there as well. I'm not going to release the whole question schedule ahead of time. And with Danny, I think it's just really finding out a little bit more about Danny Butterfield. Where he's come from, what his role at Southampton was, how he's found settling into Lincoln, etc., etc. So we're going to be looking at that. There will be no Q&A from the audience. It's not a club thing. That's an us thing. It could just go on too long. We've got a lot to get through tonight. We've very kindly been given the venue, so at the same time we can't kind of turn it into a fans forum because we could be there all night. So then there'll be a break after that. There'll be opportunity to go and get your sausage rolls or your pies. I think it's pie and peas or pie and gravy. Get yourself your pint, your raffle tickets, which I'll come on to later. And then it's on to part 2. And part two is nice and simple. It's one person. He's a podcast regular. It's Liam Scully. We've got a lot to talk about with Liam. Want to get into the transfer window. How was this transfer window? What's the market looking like? We want to talk about the new investment on the board, or the new board members rather, in Graham and Harvey. What did they bring to the board? We want to talk about the Stacey West development. We want to talk about commercial opportunities. You know, San Diego Loyal, we announced the link up. What does that look like in real terms? So we've got Liam there face to face, and Liam's always good. He's always honest. He's always candid. Charlie, who's coming along, morning Charlie, he'll know he's on the supporters board with Liam. You do get a good chat with him. And Sean, no, we're not finding out about favorite flavor of crisps. I'm sorry. So that'll be the Liam Scully. My dog's disappeared. That's not good. I better go back and find him. So that's the Liam Scully bit. So after Liam, we'll probably take another break at that point, depending on time, for you to go and replenish your glasses, get more food if you wish, do a little bit of a mingle. In these breaks, you might be able to meet the people that are there. So, certainly Danny and Mark will be there after their set. Whether they'll stay for Liam's, I doubt it. But then after Liam's, we've got Paddy O'Connor coming on. We've got a couple of ex-players coming on. They may be about beforehand to meet as well, so there might be a bit of a meet and greet. So after that break, we'll go into the third bit. This is player special. The first bit is the final bit of the live podcast. So that's going to be Paddy O'Connor. We're going to be chatting to Paddy on the sofa or wherever it is that we find ourselves sitting. And with Paddy, it'll be very much about his career, his pathway, from Irish football through Leeds United and back to us, and a little bit of fun stuff around his teammates and that sort of thing. Told Paddy he's great to interview. Never spoke to Paddy before in an interview, met him at an event. So we'll get to have a little bit of a chat with Paddy. That'll be the end of the live show, but it won't be the end of the show for the people that are there. So again, if you're watching this and you're in Lincoln, and there will be a bit of exclusive content, so you can get yourself down on the list, because after that, we've got a couple of former players in the house. So Phil Hubbard will be there. John Schofield will be there. Two players, both with more than 200 appearances for the 200th podcast. We'll be doing a fun little quiz with them. So they'll be quizzed on their careers and each other's careers, just a 3-question quiz to lighten the mood. And then we'll be having a bit of a chat with them. We will have some scope to take some questions from the audience at that point, if you wish, so we can have a little bit of audience participation. And at that point, it's likely that we'll wrap up. If there are any questions for Ben and I, and depending on the time, we might take a couple. Don't ask Ben about football. It's pointless. So yeah, that'll be that basically. At the end, I'm imagining people will file away, but as I've said, the bar's open, the food's there. Want it to be much more social than the events we've done in the past. The ones we've done in the past were very much turn up, kind of see the event, not much scope for kind of mingling. With the breaks here, it's really important that you guys come and get something out of it as well. We don't just want it to be a live podcast. We want it to be an event that people who were there enjoy and take something from. So parking is Stacey West car park. Walk round to the Legends Lounge. Doors will open at 6:30. Event starts at 7 o'clock. I'm going to say on the dot, but probably won't be. But we'll try as close to 7 o'clock as possible. On the door, there will be a voluntary donation for the foundation. The foundation do a lot of phenomenal work with the local community. They do their kind of like a drop-in centres, the keep warm hub. So people who are struggling with heating bills in the local community can go along and spend some time in the Legends Lounge. They're really good initiatives. So there'll be a voluntary donation. There is no pressure, because everybody, you guys included, all feeling the cost of living bite. I actually thought earlier, as I was turning the fish tank lights on, it's where I keep the piles of wood for the log burner. I thought it's nice going out tonight because I won't burn through that wood. I'll save some. So do you know what I mean? And that's right at the weakest end. Some people are struggling to eat every week, and the football club and the foundation phenomenal work. So it's voluntary. There will be a raffle for the foundation as well. So we've got some good prizes. Imp Tunes, Mr. Ray, he'll be in attendance right at the front of the queue. He's donated some postcards of Paddy O'Connor and Mark Kennedy, the ones that he's done. We'll get those signed on the day. We'll be giving those away as raffle prizes in pairs, so you can get your signed Paddy and Mark Kennedy in platoons. I've still got to see if there's a copy of my book. If you're really lucky, it'll be a limited edition one that hasn't been signed by me. They are as rare as hen's teeth. If I don't have one, then there won't be one. Frankly, I'll have to have a look. I think they're all on the trust stamp. I think the foundation are going to bring along a raffle prize as well, from what I've heard. And the top prize is going to be a Paddy O'Connor match-worn shirt, obviously to celebrate Paddy's attendance there as well. Not sure how much they're going to be yet. Not even sure who's doing the raffle yet. Like in true Stacey West podcast style, it is, of course, the day of the event, and we're kind of going, right, what are we going to do now? But there will be a raffle. Bring your money along. We won't be taking cards for that, so please try and bring a little bit of cash along if you come in, just to get some raffle tickets. It'd just be nice to put a little bit more money back into the foundation. Huge thanks to the football club, obviously, for arranging this. Charlie says, what time will we be finished? The plan is to try and finish around 9:30, because obviously we need to tidy up and all that sort of stuff, but we shall have to see. It depends how it goes. We're aiming for a 9:30 kind of wrapping up of proceedings. Whether there'll then be half an hour or so afterwards to meet and greet, I don't know. Phil Hubbard and John Schofield will almost certainly be there. I don't know if Powdy might disappear after his little section, but we think that sort of time. So again, if you're in Lincoln and you're at a loose end, as we say, we've got, I think at last count it was 8 tickets left. A couple of people dropped out overnight, little rush of COVID going through the camp, so to speak. So we are really close to capacity. So that's it really. That's tonight's live show. There probably won't be a general podcast this week. I just think time-wise it might be a little bit of a struggle. So there probably won't be a Bristol Rovers preview. We probably won't be looking back on Accrington. I haven't done a dog walk on Accrington either. So I suppose I could now, for the second part of this, just kind of touch on that a little bit, touch on last weekend and this weekend. And Steve Turner's kind of put, for me, he's summed it up here. Hard to not get excited about Ethan Errejón, I believe. Errejón. God, I hope that's right, because it would be unusual for me to get a pronunciation right. But yeah, Ethan Errejón, I thought came in on Saturday, looked really good. A player like him makes players around him better. So there's no surprise that Ted Bishop and Ben House, two of the best footballers in our squad, in my opinion, both had great games. Why? Because that's where everything starts. Is kind of at that holding midfielder. That's the heartbeat. It's where your attacks start. It's where your first line of defence, really. I mean, your first line of defence is probably attack, but you know what I mean. You know, he sits in front of the defence, makes the defenders better. Mark Kennedy said, when you've got a player like him, play moves 10, 15 yards up the pitch almost straight away, and that makes it really difficult for certain types of team. And hopefully that will be the case this weekend. Look, there's no guarantee that we're going to come out and play against Accrington, against Bristol Rovers as we did against Accrington. And people will say, it's only Accrington, we've only beaten Accrington. But to be fair, when you've got the worst record against teams in the bottom half, and you've lost 3-0 to Burton and drawn 0-0 with Cambridge and MK Dons, only beating Accrington actually is a huge thing, because it proves for me that we've taken that step forward in that maybe now we can actually go on and beat teams that we're supposed to beat. And I say that, I don't mean that in a kind of we're better than that team, but when a team like Accrington Stanley, who are struggling and who have kind of overexerted themselves, have had a little bit of an FA Cup run, when teams like that are your opponent, as Lincoln City, we expect as supporters that we should be winning that game. If a team is below you in the league, you expect to win that game. Doesn't always happen. We've proven it, I think, several times. But it isn't always like that. And as Kate says, look, it's only Accrington is a strange thing for people to say, given that we've already lost to them recently. Not in normal time. We drew 1-1 at our place and 2-2 in the trophy. So we haven't actually lost to them in normal time. Only on penalties, which for me is kind of more like a draw. But it's an odd thing to say when you think that they have got a longer history than us in League One, that they beat us last season. I think home and away. I think they beat us home and away. Did we lose 1-0 at our place to them? And they were really poor. And I seem to think it was the game where Max Sanders got slated, and you got the impression that he was never going to play for the club again under Michael Appleton. So yeah, it does feel strange, but it is the type of game that we should be winning. And you look to this Saturday and you look to the form book, Bristol Rovers are kind of in free fall. They're not happy. They lost to MK Dons this weekend. Their supporters are kind of saying that they're a bit of a shambles at the moment. And you think, well, is that the type of game we should be winning at Sincil Bank? Yes, the answer is yes, it is. But it's not the type of game this Lincoln City team win. We win away at Barnsley, or we win away at Ipswich, or yeah, we've got Derby away on Tuesday night. The most Lincoln thing ever would be to get beaten at home by Bristol Rovers, or to draw with Bristol Rovers and then go and win at Derby. And you'd take that. But at some point, to take the step that we wish to take and to be the top of the bottom half or the bottom of the top half, touching the top 10, you have to be getting the results against the bigger clubs as and when you can. And you won't always. We've proven that when we've gone to places like Bolton, you won't always get those results. And you have to be beating the teams that are in the bottom 4, bottom 5, bottom 8. You have to be beating those teams. So for us to go to Accrington and win, it felt like I got carried away. And I know it did. I know it felt. I could feel it at 3-0, kind of, dancing around the room, thinking Wembley, here we come. When it's not going to happen, I felt like I got carried away. But what I would say is that in beating Accrington, we finally put down that marker. We can convincingly beat a team that we are supposed to beat. We didn't really do it all last season. Morecambe, the game that we won against Morecambe at home last season, which was a crucial kind of relegation 6-pointer. 2-0 up, and then we lumbered through the last half. It was a hard watch. We beat them on my birthday this year. And again, it wasn't a hugely convincing win. It was a win, but it wasn't hugely convincing. This felt convincing. This felt suddenly like a Lincoln City team had got the right tools to pick apart a team that I feel on paper 1 to 11 and in terms of approach were weaker than we were. How often in recent years have we come across a team who are weaker on paper than us, who are, tactically don't look as kind of advanced or as ambitious as we have, who have then won or who have shut us down? Doncaster last season springs to mind. Wimbledon last season. I mean, last season it was just littered with games that we should have won and we didn't. And that's where the progression is. I've never bought into the negativity around this squad being awful, 75% need change and all that sort of stuff. We've always been 1 or 2 players away. I absolutely stand by my assertion at the beginning of the season that the entire success of this season hinged on replacing Liam Bridcut. And you saw that 2 years ago when Liam came into the club and we went to the playoffs. When he didn't play, we were worse. And you only have to look back at other years as well. Alex Woodyard. If we hadn't had Alex Woodyard in midfield in the 2016-17 season, would we have won the title? I don't think we would. I don't think we would have come out of the National League, because that player is the glue that holds everything together. That player is the one that starts attacks. That player is the one that stops some attacks from even happening in the other direction. And in Ethan Errejón, I feel on the first glimpse, and I don't want to get carried away, but on the first glimpse, I feel that we finally found that player who can do that. And to a degree, Matty Virtue was kind of like that. He wasn't probably quite as defensive. Just imagine if Virtue comes back and we can play, for instance, a 4-3-3 with Virtue, Errejón and Bishop. That's a top 10 midfield in this league if they are all playing to their ability, as we think they can, as we've seen one match from Ethan. Could be a flash in the pan. We've all seen those debuts that look great and then go nowhere. Jordan Garrick, for instance. But just imagine that midfield we know what Ted Bishop can do. When Ted Bishop's on fire, he is a great midfielder. The problem with Ted is that he's harder to get him on fire than it is a pile of wet sticks at times. But once he goes. And keeping him fit is a massive kind of priority. But, Fleetwood at home and that kind of month of August, he was superb. He looked really good again on Saturday, because I think Ethan Errejón. Ben House, my boss Ash this morning said, I've watched the highlights back. House looks brilliant. He is. Get the ball into his feet. Ben House is good. And what I like about Ben House is, okay, so he's got 7 league goals, I think 8 in total. So a majority of goals have come in the league. And over the last few seasons, if you look at our leading scorers, there's always been lots of goals in the Mickey Mouse Trophy. In the EFL Trophy, I think, Scully got 4 or 5 maybe last year. He certainly got the hat-trick against Man United's kids. Jack Diamond scored a few in that competition this season. I'm not saying they're easy goals. I'm not saying they're goals that you discount from a list because of the competition they're in. But when a player like Ben House has got his goals, not just in the league, but against Ipswich Town, for instance, I think he scored home and away against Ipswich Town. Did he score? Was it him with the? No, it was Bolton, wasn't it? He scored against at home. Ipswich away. He scores kind of crucial goals. That's a proper goal scorer. And for me, if you're a 25 goal a season man, but 7 or 8 of your goals come in the Mickey Mouse Trophy, 3 come in the FA Cup, a couple of penalties in the league, and actually from the league, from open play, you score 7 or 8, it's entirely possible. Okay, you're valuable. But if you're a Ben House, who I think will end the season on 12, 13 goals, and they're all in the league, or nearly all in the league, and they're in big games, that's important. I was on the radio the other night, on Radio Lincolnshire, and it was mentioned about Jack Diamond, the most prolific player that we have. Actually, if you take out Diamond's penalty goals, and I'm not devaluing the penalty, but I'm saying is a penalty it's not a gimme. But if you take out his penalty goals and you take out the EFL Trophy goals, you've only got probably 2, I think, potentially from open play, both against Bristol Rovers. And so then is that prolific? What is prolific? Is prolific a John Akindi scoring, let's say, 8 from open play and 9 from the spot? I mean, people say prolific's 20 goals a season. I think a striker could be prolific and not hit 20, especially if he's in and out of the team through injury or something like that. I really like Ben House's point I'm making. And I actually think of all the signings that we've made since the awful summer, as we'll call it, the Adelakun and the Maguire and the Anundaloo summer, which was a bad summer. I confess, I hold my hands up now. But since then, I think Ben House is the best signing that we've made. And that includes some of the loan signings as well. But Ethan Errejón might just kind of usurp that. But I think that Ben House is an absolutely classic example of what we are trying to do. Find a player who is quality, out of the National League, and sell him on. And sometimes they don't make the instant impact. Sometimes it can be 6 months. That's what it's taken Ben to settle. Sometimes it can be longer than that. Certainly with Charlie Kendall, we hope that might be the case. I like Ben House. Ben House, Ted Bishop, Ethan Errejón, Paddy O'Connor, centre-back. Absolute quality since he signed. Lewis Monsma coming back, looked really good. Suddenly there's a spine there again. A spine that we didn't have 3 weeks ago when Ben House was injured and when Ethan Errejón wasn't with the team or when Ted Bishop was injured. So there's 3 key players there, in my opinion. Defensive midfielder, attacking midfielder, striker that we didn't have, and we still didn't lose to Cambridge. We still didn't lose to MK Dons. It's easier now, isn't it, walking in the wolds with my freezing cold hand, to have that kind of hindsight, to have that perception to look back and go, well, maybe actually getting through January, it was a tough watch. Yeah, it takes a lot for me to be negative, like properly negative, like not looking for the positives negative. That's how I felt after the Cambridge game. Both Cambridge games, home and away. Because again, I feel that Cambridge are a team we should be beating. I feel they're a team that will be playing League 2 football next year. And having lived there, I think, and having kind of seen us overtake them from when they won the National League and we stayed down, it stings a little bit more, I think, when we don't get the result against them. I'm just wondering what my dog's going to do. So that's what that's why I think January was tough. But actually, we've endured a tough spell post Boxing Day. You know what, we had 4 draws, 2 defeats in 6 league games, something like that. It's been a challenging spell. But we lost 1 this year. 1 game. And that was against the Charlton side that, a lot of good players in attack, and we had the entire spine of our team out. The spine that's done so well against Accrington. The 3 players against Accrington that caught your eye on the Stacey West Rater. Those 3 players didn't play hardly at all. In Ethan's case, obviously not at all. All the way through January, they come back. What happens? So we have got a decent squad. I don't think we've got a top 10 squad yet. I think that we've got potential within the squad to build. I think that we've got players who may not feel like permanent signings at the moment, who going forward certainly will be. I think when you look at players like Paul, who are going to be out of contract this year, he almost certainly will leave the football club. But will he leave us with a gaping gap? He'll leave us needing a right back. but not a centre back. With Monsma contracted, Powdy O'Connor contracted, I think Joe Walsh is contracted, Adam Jackson isn't. There's 3 centre backs. Sean Rowan can play centre back. I'm not sure what his contract situation is. We're in a decent place. But to remain in a decent place, to keep this positivity, we've got to win games. Mark Kennedy and Danny Butterfield, I think, would be not thanking their lucky stars, but a little bit grateful that they've gone and done what they've done on Saturday, because it certainly makes tonight's live podcast much, much easier. You know, there's some positives we can get on as well as negatives. And don't think that the podcast is all going to be sycophantic, how good was Saturday type questions, because it isn't. We will talk about the run and we'll talk about stuff, some of the more negative aspects, absolutely. But it just makes it easier for everybody involved. So look, I think that's probably me, mainly because my hand's cold. I don't know if it's gone a funny colour. It's fucking cold up here and windy. I'm kind of trying to shield from the wind, but it's definitely windy as well. So look, I hope that some of you are coming along tonight. If you're in Lincoln, you haven't got your name down, you still can. There are still limited opportunities. It's going to be a great night, I hope. A little bit nerve-wracking now. I haven't worried about it all the way up until today when I was going through the list and like they've got to 180 odd, 190 odd people and thought, wow, that's a lot of people to talk in front of, and not all of them are podcast listeners, which makes it harder because you know you've kind of got to get it, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? You've kind of got to understand that it's not like a slick professional Rob Makepeace style interview and a sportsman's dinner. It might be a little bit ragged around the edges, but we'll put on a show for you. We'll put some people in front of you. We'll talk some Lincoln City. You can have a few beers, get a bite to eat, maybe win a prize. Come and say hello. I'll be about 6:30 till 7, milling around. You know, come and say hello. I'll be about in between the breaks. I'll be about afterwards as well. So, yeah. Hopefully I'll see you all soon. And all that remains to say is up the imps.